Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
I see what you have there. Do you demand respect? Do you demand... I don't know what... Oh, I forgot the rest of the thing. What's you say?
Oh, God, I don't remember the...
I am a woman. I demand respect, and I demand something else. Something else that I, a man, do not remember, because... What if me and Lily Tomlin just did not, agree on anything?
Didn't vibe at all?
Yeah. No,
she was like, yeah, no.
What if I was like, Gavin, I had to watch all these chick flicks about liberation and
equality and stuff, consumerism. Like, what is that?
God, so lame, man. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject such as an actor, director, or mini genre. We take an entire month. We watch as much as we can. We read as much as we can. We watch some interviews too. And we take all that information. We process it down. We give it all back to you. And we tell you what we like and what we don't like. I don't know why I did the Hadouken.
I was going to go a Super Saiyan, but it is Hadouken.
So, yeah. Well, it's also a bit Super Saiyan as well too. These are all straight things. So
yeah. Whoa, our Pride episode really coming off straight.
The theme of the month.
I would argue Street Fighter and Dragon Ball
Z
pretty homosexual.
Queer.
Yeah. There are a lot of kids who are watching Toonami, okay? And
no, you're right.
It wasn't just Dragon Ball. It was Sailor Moon. It was what's the little gerbil? Hamtaro,
yeah. I remember
furries. That's where furries come from.
I thought that came from the 60s Robin Hood. But
oh yeah. Listen, I was a full faker through my Toonami era. I was like, yeah, so cool. It's unfortunately not my jam. But you know what is my jam? Gay stuff.
Pride Month. Happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride, everybody. Last episode we talked about Miss Hollisha Hunterina, also known as weirdly Holly Hunter.
That's her street name.
Yeah. That's
what the kids are calling her.
Right. I had a blast watching her movies. I had an even better time going up to people and being like, have you seen Little Black Book? Isn't that a crazy movie?
Yeah.
What do you guys think they were trying to do with that? I had a great time watching for Holly, one of our great Southern gals.
Truly.
No poll.
No.
We're still not polling. Though the polls are closed now, vote for mayor or whatever will be over by then. Well,
yes,
the primary will be over. Will be over, but
and this is clearly like a very pro Zoran podcast. And if you want to learn more about his amazing mother, check out our episode about Mira Nair, which I posted today in response to somebody else figuring out that Mira Nair is his mother. And didn't realize that that was almost that's episode 64. So it's almost 100 episodes away.
All that to say, watch all her fucking movies. All great movies. And yeah, tomorrow is the primary here in New York City. Big race. We'll see what happens. I've already voted. Have you voted, Gavin?
No, I haven't yet. I'm voting day of. I know a lot of people voted early, but I had planned to vote day of. So
I voted on Friday. I feel good about my life.
Excellent.
So, yeah, any other old business, Gavin, want to get over?
Just one thing, and I'll make it real quick. There was an error in our last episode, the Holly Hunter episode. I did remove it. Unfortunately, the episode went up, and some people caught it beforehand. So just to apologize real quick, because it's something I do many times in my real life. I confused William Hurt with John Hurt. It's just something my brain does. I am human and fallible, but I did remove any references to either Hurt from the episode.
To remove the Hurt lockers.
Exactly.
And no Hurts were lockers in this.
Hopefully no one was hurt in this.
Yeah.
But I'm very aware that they're very different people. I'm a huge fan of John Hurt. I watched both movies in which he played Quentin Crisp, one of our queer elders.
Yes.
So, yeah. He's great. John is great.
Okay. So, Gavin, this episode is our Pride episode that our dear listeners, our followers got to have a hand in to vote for and choose and decide. And so we're talking about Lily Tomlin.
Yes, by a landslide too, nonetheless.
Fleetwood Mac. And the chicks. Well, she stormed the gates, the Rainbow Road, if you will, handedly won. And I'm really excited to chat about her because I was a little bit worried, two things. I was excited because I love her. But number two, I was worried because like, is it a little bit too cheating about? Like, what are we like really gonna like
Yeah.
see here? But now, like on the other side of this, and like before we like really get into it, I was just really struck and taken by like how interesting her career is and like the things she must have had to navigate as a queer person, as a closeted queer person, as a not closeted queer person, um, in the 70s. It's just a very kind of bizarre career where like, I mean, she will also complete the trifecta of 9 to 5 Girls,
She will. Our holy
which
trinity.
yes. And when you like, I think the easiest parallel is to Jane, right?
Yes,
Um,
100%. I thought about that a lot during the process of this.
and Jane has worked a lot more in film than Lily has. They're not like one to one. Lily definitely was a creature of the theater,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But I just kept thinking like, man, that number one, she was playing old women right away.
Yeah.
Number two, she kind of disappeared and was just doing voice work for a while. I just think about like what an incredible talent she is to have broken through even with all the barriers that were in her way,
Yeah.
um such a political, person, very outspoken, um yeah,
And
just super
always
interesting.
always political throughout her entire career, and that's
Yes.
what's sort of what like she came sort of fully formed in terms of her
Hmm.
political beliefs, and very little wavering in terms of that. I think she's, if anything, and it's sort of a rare thing that happens, but I think it also happened with Jane Fonda. She's gotten more progressive as she's gotten
Yeah.
older.
Yeah, and it's just interesting, we'll get into it with the rewind, but like someone whose parents were from the South is deeply entwined with, I mean, I don't know, that whole era with the Vietnam War,
Right.
women's liberation, the gay rights movement, like she
And
kind of is coming out from all this stuff, and it's just incredible to see her doing comedy and filmmaking like all together and not compromising.
And in addition to her parents being from the South, but what, like you said, we'll get into it. Like, she also grew up in Detroit too. So those are like very, very different cultures, but also very similar
Working
in,
class.
yeah, exactly.
Do you remember like the first time you clocked Lily Tomlin?
I think it's got to be 9 to 5. I think I can't
Yeah.
imagine it being anything else. I remember us renting the VHS of that and watching it a bunch,
I love
and
that.
and it being on TV quite a bit.
I think, she was one of those actresses where like, I didn't know who she was, but every time I'd see her, I would be like, oh, that's that woman. And she has such a signature look, signature voice. She reminds me a lot of like an old school, like Grand Dame, kind of like B.
Oh,
Arthur
I
type,
like that. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like brassy, like take no shit. Um, and like, we'll get into this as well. Like, I think at the beginning of her career, she's very like kind of character actressy vibes. And then later it's just like not as much. But yeah. Okay, Gavin. Why don't we get into it?
The only thing I would want to add to that before I do dive fully into the rewind is, I think the other thing that she is just such a student of observation and like seeing
Mm.
people and just really digging into like, and it's more than just impression for her, because I think that she's not just interested in, I mean, clearly there's a bunch of silly impressions that she does, but I think she is fully invested in how people work and what makes them tick. And you especially get to that when she starts doing her one woman shows that are less akin to stand up and more, but we'll get there into that. But I do think that's also part of her story. Mary Jean Tomlin was born September 1st, 1939, making her 85 years old. Tomlin was born in Detroit, Michigan, and she's the daughter of Lily May, who was a housewife and a nurse aide, and Guy Tomlin, who was a factory worker. Now, if you notice, I did not say that her name is Lily, because her name is actually Mary Jean, and Lily is just her acting name, which is her mother's name. And essentially what it is she always thought that if she went by her mother's name, Lily Tomlin, and she tried to get her younger brother, Richard Tomlin, to go by her father's name, Guy Tomlin, that they could go out on like acting gigs as like a young British duo. Like
British.
yeah. Because she thought Lily and Guy sounded much more like effete
Even
than
well, she's right. It
yeah.
does.
So I always thought they had the best show business names, Lily and Guy. And I wanted to get my brother to change his name to Guy. I changed mine to Lily. I mean, I didn't change it legally, but, and one day down in the village, they were looking for English performers for a cabaret thing. And so I said, we'll go down and we'll say we're Lily and Guy Tomlin and talk with an English accent. And as a result, I didn't get in that show, but I did get in a mime show. Anyway.
It's just crazy to me that like this young child was like, what if we were British? Well, that's like our thing.
But that's it. So she is very intellectually curious from a young age, and it's about everything. She says she would read medical journals. She said one of her favorite things to look at was the everybody had like guides for basically being a married couple, and so she liked looking at the pictures inside because the pictures were often nude and whatnot, so she could see.
I think I was just sexually precocious. And I was very onto the fact that adults had sex, although I didn't quite know what that was. But when we'd go visit somebody at their home, first thing I'd do is not that we visited people that had a lot of books, they didn't necessarily, but very often they would have a marriage manual.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, and I went right for it from the time I was pretty young.
And she's just a sponge from a very, very early age. Her
favorite book was the DSM-4.
Yes, exactly. Her parents were Southern Baptists who moved to Detroit from Paducah, Kentucky during the Great Depression. And although she was a Southern Baptist, she was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. She is our second subject in a row who considers herself irreligious, which just means she does not have any religious practice or any form. She doesn't really, which I feel like that's not something you run into. I feel like even most of our subjects, they'll, whatever it is, there'll be some practice, and it's kind of refreshing to see that some of them, because that's closer to where I'm at in the world. So.
Right. I mean, like, not everyone is like Nicole Scherzinger praising God.
Yeah. But where'd you get that hat, by the
way? Does anyone still wear a hat? But yeah, most folks are like, there's something.
Yeah.
But she's lived through some shit. So
absolutely.
I imagine that informs that.
And she talks about, how she grew up amongst, there are Black people, white people, lower class, like, there were handicapped people there. She kind of lived just amongst, like, she'd love to go to other people's apartments and just listen to them talk. And that's part of exactly what I was talking about, that she's a sponge. She liked to absorb. She's an observer. And then oftentimes it would come out in her comedy.
People try to force me into, disavowing my childhood. And I have a hard time to do it. I mean, my dad was an alcoholic and died when he was only 56, but it was never a big deal to me, I'm sure other kids raised in that environment, they think it's horrific. I hear kids say, very somber and tragically that one or both of their parents were alcoholic. My dad was a fairly benign alcoholic. I guess that's maybe the difference. But he was sober all week. My father was a very hard worker. And but he did go on benders on the weekends, and and I would go to the track with him. I'd go to the bookie joints with him, and I liked as much of life as I could get a hold of. I think I liked everything so much. I think I was really kind of in love with being in that apartment house and being in my neighborhood, and then going to Kentucky in the summers and seeing all the cultural differences.
She graduates high school in 1957, and then she attends Wayne State University, where she originally studies biology. But while she's at college, she auditions for a play and ends up being like, oh, this is something I can do. And so she decides to switch her major to theater. And so she graduates from there, and she just basically starts doing stand-up. And she does initially start in Detroit, but she basically kind of takes the glamorized idea of like, I need to go to New York. I need to make it in New York.
Oh, so I had to sleep on a footlocker. For about a week, I slept on a footlocker with a round top. Oh, it was so difficult.
So you have no money, you're sleeping on a footlocker.
Well, I went and
These
so,
people are
so
writing curse words on the wall against each other.
And he's got farina boiled over on the stove, and she won't allow me to speak to him. And those were great days in the East Village anyway. I mean, really fabulous.
I feel like, thinking about this and hearing the story about her, and even Holly as well from last episode, it makes me like think and wonder how like people forget that if you come to New York to hustle and try and make it, like the price, like beyond like the money of it all, but like, yes, you will be sleeping on fucking couches in like shitty apartments. Like something has happened within the culture that like people think you come to New York and that you were gonna also get the suburban, amenities. It's like, no, it is gonna be hard. And it's not just like, you can't come here and complain that like, oh, it's, nothing has air, or like, I can't find, like, yes, people come here and sacrifice a lot when they're really young to try and like get yourself in a room where you can make the thing happen. And a lot of amazing, incredible, talented people, including Holly, including Lily, like that's what you had to fucking do.
And it's really interesting to consider that, like, she does have kind of we certainly have recency bias on this show when we cover somebody and then we cover somebody else that has a similar story, so we can see those reflections. But I think it's interesting to point out that like Lily's doing this, 30 years before Holly Hunter does. So it is interesting to see like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
And again, I just keep coming back to like, people who just fucking have it, like you will get through the barriers. You will get through the barriers. You just have to put yourself in the position to like, what's that thing to say about luck? It's like being in the right place, right time, or whatever. Like being prepared for opportunities. Like she was, and she put herself out there. Like in my head, she like went to Wayne State, was it her biology stuff, and then like tried out for that play, kissed a girl, and was like, holy shit, my life has changed.
Sparkles and rainbows.
Yeah. I kissed a girl. I'm in a play, and my life has changed now. Goodbye.
And while she's in New York, she takes a job waitressing, which is what one does when you're acting. You're waiting, and it's funny. She ends up sort of weaving a monologue about that into one of her later Broadway shows, which is, I believe, Appearing Nightly, where she does this thing about like her dream was to become a waitress.
Even as a child, I knew it. I didn't always want to be a gifted actress. There was a time in the beginning when I wanted to be a waitress. Of course, everyone in the family thought it was cute at first. They'd let me wait on company. When I'd lose a tooth at night, my father would leave me a quarter under a plate.
I think that informs that really amazing bit. It's so funny. And she ends up being able to do that specific bit from Appearing Nightly at the Tony Awards because they gave her a special Tony for doing that show. But that's later on. I do want to get to that. And while she's doing this waitressing job, she's also still honing her craft at HB Studio, which was a nonprofit organization that offers professional training in the performing arts through classes and workshops and free lectures and theater rentals and whatnot. And I think they're still around. I'm not absolutely sure, but like Uta Hagen, was part of this as well. And
what'd you call me?
You heard me. But like Candice Bergen, Carol Kane, Judd Hirsch, all these other people are alumni of this program. And so it sort of has the bona fides, if you will. What did you call me? And she makes her first television appearance in 1965 on the Merv Griffin Show. And then a year later, she becomes a cast member on the short-lived third and final incarnation of the Gary Moore Show. Gary Moore, very famous comedian, had 3 different versions of the same show. Famously, the second version of that show is what launched Carol Burnett's career. And so I think when they were making the third iteration of it, they were like, we need a Carol Burnett, and there's Lily Tomlin, who at this era, by the way, and it's no coincidence, and it's still a little bit before Clute, but she has a very like Clute style haircut because she's going with the fashion. She's becoming, beautiful young celebrity lady in New York. And then she joins the sketch comedy show Rowan Martin's Laugh-In on NBC, starting with the third season. And she was there to replace Judy Carn, who's leaving the show, but she like instantly blows up.
Well, and again, like what's funny on Laugh-In, it's a sketch show, which I think
sort
for
of.
most.
I mean, it is. You're not wrong. I don't want to make it sound like I'm correcting you, but the speed and the clip in which the sketches, like almost every sketch is interrupted by a non sequitur. It's a very like we don't have anything like it on TV anymore because it's so different than any other type of sketch show.
What I think is interesting is like, I saw a couple of these, and then, there are a couple of her first movies that are in this realm where she's doing these very specific characters she'd come up with, and now that I'm thinking about it, is this like the Melissa McCarthy track? Like where
interesting
doing like sketch and characters, and then like, but Melissa still gets to do some characters, I guess now. I guess what I'm saying is like, as we get later in her career, Lily Tomlin becomes the character. Like it's just kind of like the, dry, disaffected, kind of old grandma character that we see over and over again. I'm not saying it's bad, but
no, but you're right.
But interesting that like here she's doing voices, she's doing physical comedy, she's doing like it's really kind of cuckoo, crazy PB Herman style stuff.
And one of the things I think is really cool, which is a complete sidebar of what you're talking about, but sort of similar along those lines, is a lot of the characters that she comes up with for Rowan Martin's Laugh-In, they're hers. They're her generated. And it's not like a Saturday Night Live situation where Saturday Night Live then owns those characters. Like if you get on Saturday Night Live and you bring a character with you, that's Saturday Night Live's. She gets to keep these characters. They become her intellectual property, and she gets to sort of dine on them for years afterwards. And these are very recognizable characters that we've had. I think everybody knows, or anybody that is familiar with Lily Tomlin knows Ernestine, who's the telephone operator, who's very like famous for the talks like this and snorts and one ringy dingy, two ringy dingy.
One ringy dingy. Two ringy dingies. A gracious good afternoon. This is Miss Tomlin from the telephone company.
There's Edith Ann, who's the precocious 5.5-year-old girl. And she said, she based Edith Ann off herself. The only difference is she like put her in between her and her younger brother. So in terms of age, so she could be like a middle child.
My name is Edith Ann, and I don't have to say nothing if I don't want, because I'm going to have a baby. You know how you could get a baby? First, you could get real fat. Then you could eat a lot of pickles.
I think the other biggest one, and there's a bunch of people like Lucille the Rubber Freak, who is the character who actually got her the job on Laugh-In. But I think the other one that most people recognize is Mrs. Judith Beasley, who is this kind of like, she's like an everyday woman. She's like always being interviewed about like housewares and stuff. But also what's cool about her is she like is very down with the gays. I found like a clip from the 70s of her going to a gay bar and being like, oh, I brought cookies for these men. It's important that they stay hydrated and whatnot.
So I am trying to study the contemporary sexual mores across this great nation. This particular evening, I'm here on behalf of the heterosexual community doing community outreach to the homosexual community. And I brought the quiche of peace. And I hope they'll accept it in the same spirit with which it's given.
And so like, these characters are all really funny, but they're also really subversive in a way. Like I was just mentioning about Judith, she is this seemingly buttoned up, like almost like 1950s housewife, but is espousing these like kind of anti-capitalist, anti-consumerism, like very progressive ideas. Edith Ann is like a 5-year-old, but she like has this wisdom beyond her years. Maybe the least progressive character is Ernestine, because she's just kind of a bitch, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's funny in the way that she does it. It
We'll
what's
see. I mean, some of these, like you said, like some of these characters we'll see later.
Yes.
Like and that's what's so cool. She just got to like really mine these, and I guess this is also like a New York tradition, like of there are performance artists who like just have these characters who, if you go to a cabaret, like you'll see, is it like the clay woman, like
Yeah.
who, like, and that's just like a character, like, just go and do a show and you'll see clay woman. And she really was so just like trailblazing. It's kind of
Yeah.
like nuts, like seeing all this stuff.
There is a fourth. Thank you. You actually just reminded me. I think the other one that like is big in carryover in terms of her female characters, which is a character called Tess, sometimes called Trudy, who is a houseless woman. She's a bag lady, and yeah, and that's
She talks about aliens.
Yes,
and
exactly,
communicating with them.
But like I said, those are female characters. She's also so subversive that she's creating male characters, and she's going on and doing male drag, which was basically sort of unheard of. She's not the originator of it by any means, but on television, there was a lot of men dressing as women. Milton Berle would dress as women. Flip Wilson would dress as women. And we talk a lot about that in our Drag on Film episode, but there wasn't a ton of women doing men. And famously, she has this character called Rick. She has this lounge singer called Tommy Velour, who I love. And I love, like, part of the gag is that Lily Tomlin herself hates him because he's just kind of a total skis.
And here's that nutty chick, Lily Tomlin. Lily's going to be opening in this room tomorrow night. Hey, come on, give us one of these.
And also to a lesser extent, and as a character, she's retired, and I think that's maybe for the best. She does have a black male soul singer called Purvis Hawkins. I think obviously this comes from another generation, and I don't want to excuse it by any means. The one thing that I will give her is she never did race makeup. She would not let them darken her skin. She would use lighting effects, which still not great, but
yeah, I mean, like she does a lot of characters, a lot of voices, and I think with her experience growing up in Detroit and in New York City, she does. There were times where I was like, I think she's doing a black character. Like, I think sometimes it's not obvious, other times it is, because there definitely is a character later where I was like, oh, she's like rocking like a very small fro.
Yeah,
I was like, but I was like, wow, do I think it's like good? No, I was like, but it feels like she was like, you can just tell when it's coming from a place of love and not a place of
right.
like, the joke is not that she's playing a black person. It's kind of like she's like, I can do this. And
right.
It's more of a flex than anything. But again, like, different time, would not recommend now.
Right. And like I said, she's since retired, that character. And I do think it's interesting that I think it goes back to, like, she grew up in a place where there were a lot of black people. And I think in her brain, she thinks that these are things I observed. These are things that, like, I lived through, and they are part of my story. And that is unfortunately, and I think she recognizes this, so I don't want to speak for her, but like, that is unfortunately a very white thing to do. But you are correct, as I do think part of it is that, like, it doesn't come from a place of hate. It's certainly not, she's not trying to be disrespectful. I think it was just a different time.
It feels like you were saying, everything's so studied. She's making, all these characters are making commentary about like life and like existence. And so it's not like, isn't it so funny black people talk this way? Or isn't it so funny that black people like dress up this way? So yeah, like you were saying, like the curiosity really just is like at the front and center for her with all these characters. And I mean, this next little bit about AT&T is just like all proof you need. Like,
yes. Yeah. It's funny. So in the 70s, AT&T comes to her and offers her to do Ernestine for a bunch of commercials. And she's talked about this. I have an interview clip that maybe I'll put in where she was hurt because she was like, my artistic integrity is about like Ernestine is like making fun of this idea of the telephone, like, and you come to me and you want me to like sully my own artistic value for your profit.
She said, the phone company has made you an offer to do television commercials with Ernestine, and literally tears sprang to my eyes because I was so hurt that my character could be co-opted. You know, that I thought I was such an important satirist, satirizing the phone company. Now they wanted to buy Ernestine, so that was a heavy blow to my satirist heart.
$500,000 in the 70s?
Yeah.
That's a fuck ton of money.
And then in the 90s, she actually does go ahead and do some stuff with Ernestine. But once again, it's a different time and whatnot. And I think there were a lot of things that I've talked about this on the show before. I think there were a lot of things that we did in the 90s that people wouldn't do anymore, that I think people were like, all this stuff is over. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten worse now. Whatever. After Rona Martin's Laugh-In ends, I think she's on it for about 3 or 4 years. And when it ends, she starts doing comedy albums. And her first comedy album, This Is a Recording, which is such a funny fucking name for a comedy album, comes out in 1971, has a lot of Ernestine on it, and it hits number 15 on the Billboard Hot 200, becoming and remaining, as of 2011, the highest charting album ever by a solo female comedian. She earns a Grammy Award that year for Best Comedy Recording for that album. And then her second album comes out literally the next year, and it's called And That's the Truth. And that is an album heavily featuring Edith Ann, and it's almost as successful. It peaks at number 41 on the chart.
At the time, again, like the Miss Maisel of it all, like, you know, it's this early 70s, and she's doing character work. She's not even like doing like, you know, knock, you know, jokes. Like it's philosophical. It's just wild that she already has a Grammy. She's charting. It's the early 70s. She hasn't even fucking had a movie yet. Like,
right, exactly. And before she does start doing movies, by the way, I do just want to touch a little bit on, she does a bunch of television specials. She gets offered a bunch of television specials. And it's funny, I found an interview with both her and Jane where, and by that I mean her partner, not Jane Fonda, where she's like, I don't know like what people wanted, if they were looking for another Carol Burnett. And Jane's like, yeah, that's it. That's what they wanted. But her first TV special is 1973's Lily. Famously, she gets Richard Pryor for that special. And it's funny because she keeps, it's interesting. It is like the first listed I can find. I keep seeing herself in interviews call it her second special. But from what I can tell, it's her first. I'm just gonna say she has a comedy special. I could be wrong. It could be her second. It could be her first. I don't want to,
Gavin's triggered by corrections.
Yes, correct. And oh no, I said correct now too. But famously, right off the bat, she's like already like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this in my own way. And I actually think now would be maybe a good time to talk about Jane Wagner real quick. So she is looking for people to work on her albums, especially that second album involving Edith Ann. And she wants to find somebody who can capture her voice, who like speaks in a specific way and whatnot. And she runs across this after school special that won this Peabody Award called JT, and it was written by Jane Wagner. So she's like, I want to meet this woman. I'm interested. That after school special is about a young houseless black child who befriends a dying kitten, essentially.
Oh my God.
It's apparently heavy.
Yeah.
I did not watch it.
Not a laugh riot? Weird.
No, but she wants to meet this woman who's doing this writing, because she's like, oh, I would love to have her work on this thing for Edith Ann.
And it was so satiric and edgy and sweet and tender and loving and affirming, and yet so intelligently written. And every phrase, every sentence almost, line was like a perception, sort of essenced, and yet it seemed naturalistic and carried plot and character forward. And I thought, oh my God, this is just what I love in a monologue. How can you get in 5 minutes or 6 minutes, compress something so that you understand a culture type, or you create some kind of metaphorical invention that conveys something else about the culture. So I just loved it. So I called her and asked her to come to California. I had to do my Edith Ann album, and I asked her to come and help me produce it. And she sent me some raggedy papers with notes all over it and scribblings. She still writes that way to this day.
And she meets her and is immediately smitten.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because Jane Wagner, not impressed. Jane Wagner's kind of like, whatever. And Lily Tomlin said that she knew she wanted to see Jane Wagner again.
I didn't fly in those days. I'd had so many friends who died, who'd OD'd and everything. And I wouldn't even get on a plane. So I was taking the train back to Chicago the night after the party that the record company, and I as soon as I hit that town, I jumped on a plane and flew back to say, because I had like a day off before I started the show. And I called her and I said, I don't really have a lot of time. And I wanted to see her so badly, you know, so, and I did get a date with her.
The things we do for love.
Exactly. So Jane Wagner helps her write this album, and she basically becomes not only her life partner, but her creative partner. Jane is now basically involved in every piece of Lily's artistic life that is Lily driven. So like, obviously like, Jane Wagner's not working on the fucking Beverly Hillbillies, but like every show that Lily does, every, you know, Jane Wagner has a hand in a written word. And so I just want to bring that up because one of the things that she writes famously for the special, you can find the whole special online. It takes a little bit of digging. If you can't find it, you can always contact me. I can get it to you. But the very famous bit of this comes from a sketch from the end of the show with her and Richard Pryor. It's a sketch called Juke and Opal. It's about a 10-minute sketch. There's basically no jokes in it. And it's about a man strung out on heroin at this diner owned by Opal. There's some question about whether Lily is playing a black woman in it or not. She is wearing a head wrap, but she's not doing any skin darkening at all by anybody. Like, it's just her normal skin tone. She is speaking in a very affected manner, which could easily be, but she has never said if the character's both. And the big problem is, besides that the execs were like, this isn't funny, it's a little too real, is that the sketch ends with a kiss between Lily Tomlin and Richard Pryor. And so the CBS executives were like, absolutely not. They came down during rehearsal. They were like, stop filming this.
They wanted us to stop taping. They wanted, stop this sketch right now. And it was just unimaginable that we could stop it. Jane wrote it specifically for Richard.
Yes.
So he'd have something great to do on the show.
Yes.
And we loved it anyway. And when we edited
it wasn't that threatening, as you can see.
Let me have a thing.
No, baby, come on.
No, I need it.
Baby.
I got to take care of business. Either I'm gonna get busted if you don't give me the money. You want me to be out there in the street trying to look in cars?
You really shouldn't give him the money. You know what he's going to do with it? He's going to go out of here and just...
I know what he's going to do with it. He's going to go out of here and get me 10 pounds of potatoes. I like them little red new potatoes for my potato soup.
And she was like, this is a trick I learned from Gary Moore, which is give them something else to kill. So they create this sketch called War Games that's about nuclear war. And she's like, great, you can have this instead. And they're like, well, we don't want that. And she's like, well, it's one or the other. So you gotta. And so Juke and Opal stays in the show. And it's so funny because it's the last sketch. And then the very next thing is her saying goodbye. And it's like her and Alan Alda. And I can't remember the other woman and another man. And she goes around and she kisses each of them. So she also kisses him a second time. And it's funny too, because she kisses him on the cheek, but she kisses everybody else on the lips, which I also think is pretty bold for early 70s, for 73, to kiss a woman on the lips at the end of a show as well. Yeah. So It's really great. I highly recommend it. I had to watch it twice. The first time I watched it, I was a little like the Juke and Opal specifically. I was kind of like, I guess like it's interesting and whatnot. But the second time I watched it, I was like, no, this is like a character study. This is what she's doing. Like this is acting and like deep, meaningful, and very much about a time and a place.
So interesting. Again, like what an artist. What a just like, you know, she was not here to make money or be a star. It's just like this weird. She's a kook. She's a freak.
She also does Saturday Night Live in 1976 or 76, 77. She does 4 episodes over that year playing Ernestine, doing various bits and whatnot. She finally makes her first big screen debut in 1975 for Robert Altman's Nashville.
Tiny little film, super, you know, just not ambitious.
No.
Like, color by numbers.
Small cast, very short.
Yes.
Basically one setting. Nashville's this sprawling ensemble cast, multiple interweaving stories, many characters, different parts of their lives, but all sort of taking place over these 5 days during the build up to this political rally for a populist presidential candidate who's like running as an outsider and whatnot. And if any of that sounds like it might have, you know, repercussions into what we are currently living through, yes, absolutely.
Well, yes.
I think it's still so politically relevant. What's interesting about her casting is Robert Altman. Many people think because Robert Altman's dialogue is so like, it's people talking over each other and it's very spontaneous and whatnot, that he doesn't write anything down. He writes entire scripts or starts with an entire script. It's then in the filming process, all gets changed. So essentially he writes this role for Louise Fletcher, who was just in a previous film that he did, Thieves Like Us. And it's because of this character is this white gospel singer who has 2 deaf children and ends up having an affair with this country singer who is played by Keith Carradine, who sort of breezes into town. And the reason he writes this for Louise Fletcher is she is a woman. She's a great actress. She is a woman who had 2 deaf parents, grew up with 2 deaf parents. So he like thinks this is fascinating, it's interesting. At that time, Lily is actually cast in a different movie to make her big screen debut. She is cast as Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Dag.
And Milos Forman, who's directing that, is like, this woman is not right for the role. And so he sees Robert Altman's Thieves Like Us and sees Louise Fletcher, and he's like, I want her for the role. And he goes and
do a switch, a trade.
Yeah. He poaches her. And so she leaves Nashville, and Robert Altman's like, why don't you play this role then in Nashville?
Wow.
Yeah. I love this like switcheroo. And honestly, we got the best of it. Like we won as an audience because Lily Tomlin gets nominated for an Academy Award in her very first film production. And let me not mince words. This is a dramatic role. There is nothing... There's very little comedy when it comes to Lily's story specifically. Maybe the beginning when she's doing the gospel with an entirely black choir behind her. And so it's funny to watch this white woman like invade a black space because she's just clueless about it, clearly. But she's also said that like that didn't faze her because she did go to black churches when she was a kid and whatnot. So she didn't even think about it as being weird. But the rest of it, I mean, the scenes with her and the children, I actually really adore. Honestly, there's a bit very early where her husband like clearly does not understand their deaf children, clearly does not care. And she's like not focusing on anything he's saying because she's trying to interpret the sign language that her children, like she's like asking about their day. And admittedly, like she has a lot of beautiful scenes in the movie, but this time was the first time like I really thought about her, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, thought about her as a parent and was like, oh, this is so sweet.
Yeah. I was watching this movie that I realized you mentioned earlier, like how good she is at studying. It made me realize also that she's a really great reactor. Like she doesn't
Yes.
have to have lines to like really have this emotion coming through. The scene where she's sitting at it's a bar, right? And he's singing I'm Easy or whatever.
Yeah,
And
which won the Academy Award. And he wrote himself, Keith Carradine, brought it to the movie.
Great song.
Yeah.
She's just sitting there thinking about this affair, her life. I mean, again, but also we have to like track almost all of these movies, almost or at minimum movies that are successful have an element of this progressive political bend. Like it's very wild to think about, these movies from the 70s and how progressive and radical they are. I mean, like this candidate is talking about like, anti-consumerism, like kind of very like you were saying, populist things. It's like that would fuck it like the kids today would lose their little minds.
Yeah.
This socialist fucking movie, like the Zohran Mandami movie of the 70s, like it's and this movie with itself, like she is, part of this black choir. So we've got like civil rights going on, we got women's rights going on, we've got disability movement going on. Like there's so much going on here. Mental health stuff with like the other singer. This is the first time I've seen Nashville.
Oh wow. Oh yeah.
So
Wow. Yeah.
a lot going on. Her part is, I think she even said, she's like, I'm in the movie for like 6 minutes, 7.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a lot. And it's a fucking 3-hour movie. But that moment where she's just listening to the song, I was like, damn, she fucking got it.
You want to learn how to say something in sign language?
Yeah. How do you say I love you?
Well, you could say shorthand for it is, this is shorthand. Or you could say, I could say love you.
I love you.
Or you could just say, I'm happy I met you.
I'm happy I met you.
Yeah, absolutely. From that, she starts getting other roles. She ends up in The Late Show, which stars her and Art Carney in 1977. What's interesting about that is the director of that movie, Robert Benton, wrote it for Robert Altman, and Robert Altman like looked at the script and was like, I'll produce this, but I think you should direct it. And I think part of it was also that Robert Altman was already doing his own noir, because that's really what this movie is. It's a sort of lesser known from that time period, but Robert Altman's doing The Long Goodbye, and I think he just kind of didn't want to be playing in the same sandbox, and that's what this movie is. It's a 70s update of a 40s, 50s noir, and it really heavy into those themes. I love this movie. I only saw this movie last year for the first time. It was on Turner Classic Movies, and I randomly was like, "Oh, I'll watch this." I love the her character's so 70s, which is like a really funny thing for a movie that's like so not 70s, like a movie style that's very like men
40s.
Yeah, exactly. And
well, she's like, I love the Zodiac and like herbs and shit. This movie, I didn't dislike this movie, but I was like, oh girl, this movie is twists on twists, double back handspring, a little too much for me.
I made Dan watch The Late Show because I really love it, and he did not like it as much. I think he was more on your same page, but he also said that the thing that that didn't work for him is the thing that like Robert Altman is actually really good at, which clearly Robert Benton was not as good at, which is that that style almost always feels like it's the first take, because there is so much improv and there's so much loosey-goosiness to it. And I think the combination of that with the fact that like this was clearly like word scripted, like that Art Carney had a lot of like hard like slang dialogue, like very throwbacky type things to deliver, and then you have Lily who's kind of like fun and like kind of poking him and trying to like get him to like loosen up.
$15 an ounce. This grass was so great, I can't tell you. There was so much resins in it, it made your lips stick together.
How long you been pushing?
Who says I'm pushing? You got a lot of nerve. I'm not pushing. You think if I was a pusher, I'd have a little empty purse like this? Geez, you make it sound like I hang around schoolyards trying to prey on 12-year-old kids. Anyways, I'm only doing it till I get my shrink paid.
Oh, that makes sense.
Speaking of awkward, weird relationships, her next film, 1978's Moment by Moment, which is unfortunately both directed and written by her partner, Jane Wagner. Moment by Moment is a summer, winter, summer. What's the May, December romance?
Yes.
Between Lily Tomlin, who's an older woman, and John Travolta, who's a younger man.
Two gay people who allegedly fall in love, I guess.
Yeah. Is there a plot to this movie? I didn't find one.
John Travolta gaslights women into
over and over again.
Hey, just be cool, okay? Like, why don't you fall in love with me or whatever? Like, let me into your house and do things.
Do you mind?
I was really enjoying being alone.
Well, look, I'd like to give you a gift, and then I'll split, all right? I think you'll like it.
You came all the way out here just to give me a gift?
Well, I came out here to see some people I knew, to help with my friend Greg. Then I thought if I saw you accidentally or bumped into you, I'd give you some red, so there you go.
There's no chemistry between either of them. I understand that they were I think they were trying to give Lily another big dramatic role, because she's not really funny in this movie either. But because I feel bad saying this about because it was her partner who wrote the love of her life who wrote this movie for her. There's not a lot of character here. For Lily, there's no character for John Travolta other than he's this fucking weirdo.
Little horn dog.
Yeah. I don't know.
Bizarre movie. Super uncomfortable.
And I feel like I immediately forgot it as soon as it ended. I was like, I guess that's the thing I watched.
Yikes. But I guess this must have been what was John Travolta doing around this time? Had he already done Grease? No.
Is this even?
This is 78. So this is
Saturday Night Fever was 77. So he's coming off the high of that, which is a pretty big high.
Yeah.
He's a very well wanted leading man. So,
well,
yeah, it doesn't hit.
No, in any type of way.
And so she goes back a bit to comedy, and she releases her third comedy album, Modern Scream, and then she goes to Broadway and she does her Broadway show Appearing Nightly. You can find Appearing Nightly on YouTube. It's not the world's greatest copy, but there was a taped what's interesting is the taped versions of her stage shows feel a little more like movies because there's a little more spice put into them. They
production.
They're not just tape stage shows. This one is a little bit more than the one we're going to talk about probably a little bit later. This is a little more typed. But I think to me the most interesting part of this is Lily finding the balance between doing that character thing and doing stand-up, because Appearing Nightly is kind of a mix of she'll slip in and out of characters, but she's also Lily Tomlin on stage. There's a great moment in it where she finishes a monologue where she ends up falling on the stage on her back and with her eyes closed, and then she pauses for what must be 30 seconds, and then she just goes, "I noticed none of you have gotten up to try and help me." And it's very good. Like I said, this is where that monologue comes from about wanting to be a waitress when she grew up. But there's some really good stuff here, but it is very 70s and very dated. And I don't think as universal as some of her later stuff will become. Which is not to say that some of her later stuff isn't also dated, but there is that. That gets turned into an album called Lily Tomlin on Stage. All that stuff, by the way, is also Jane Wagner as well, too, working with Lily.
This is interesting. Cover of Time with the headline, America's New Queen of Comedy. Huge.
Also at this time, and she has famously talked about this, Time magazine came to her assistant and told her, we will give Lily the cover of the magazine if she comes out. And Lily, once again, sticking to her guns, is like, no, like, that's not the most interesting thing about me.
They offered me the cover of Time at one point in 1975, but I didn't want to be on the cover just for being gay. I wanted to be on the cover for being
an artist.
An artist, right. Yeah, they needed a gay person for an article in Time, and they used one. They got a service person. I think it was September of 75. And then I got the cover of Time with our first Broadway show, appearing nightly, which was in 77. And that was lovely. Although Jane and I were there all the time interviewing together because we were on the road preparing our show for Broadway.
And we've talked about it together soon, and we think it should have been done probably. It might have accelerated something, but then you don't want to think, well, it was so important either. But I think Lily was not quite as solid in your career, and you wanted not to be thought of.
Well, my mother was still living too, and I tried to protect her from too much publicity.
When the Time article does come out, the New Queen of Comedy, you know, she said, I was also doing an article for like Life or People or something like that. And you like, one article doesn't even mention Jane, and the other one mentions I live with Jane. And it's not like it was a big secret. It's not like I was hiding that from anyone. And it's funny because I found later, I think it's the beginning of the 80s, she does an amazing special. 1981, she does a special called Lily Sold Out. This you can also find on YouTube. It's an hour long. I highly recommend it. And she has talked about how like this should have been a movie. She should have, but it's about Lily Tomlin going to Vegas and trying to like fit into the Vegas culture. So the first half is like them showing her around. She goes to a Tommy Velour show. But during all this, she's also playing all these other characters. What makes it even better is the second half of the special is her Vegas show, and it's all tongue in cheek and it's all subversive. And she's doing like numbers about like, here's all the men I love. And at one point she like goes into the audience and she's like, people are like, Lily, why aren't you married?
You know, people are always saying to me, Lily, for gosh sakes, when are you going to settle down and get married? And I say, look, I could have had any gal, or in my case, guy I pleased. Unfortunately, I didn't please any of them.
Because it's all fake, because she knows she's like being fake. And I think it's funny because I watched that clip before I watched the full special, and I was like, oh, it's interesting. She's always said that she was always out, but like people never. But then I watched the full special. I was like, oh, she's being satirical. She's like playing with the audience expectation. She like knows that people know, and she doesn't give a shit.
Right. She's like wearing pants every chance you can get.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, highly recommend that. Speaking of, while she's doing her Broadway show appearing nightly, there is a woman in the audience who is putting together a film called 9 to 5. And that woman is Jane Fonda. We have talked a ton about 9 to 5 on this show.
Jane Fonda said, I'm putting together a team.
Yes, exactly. She's like, you have particular skills. I want to weaponize them. And, you know, we talked a lot about the creation of 9 to 5 in our Jane Fonda episode, how Jane Fonda, it was originally a drama until she brought Lily aboard, and Lily helped her rework it and whatnot. But famously, Jane Fonda sees her in Appearing Nightly and is like, I need to get her in this movie. And as she's driving back from Appearing Nightly in her car in LA, Dolly Parton comes on the radio, and the vision comes to her like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? And we talked about this in our Dolly Parton episode of a woman whose breasts are too large that she can't even see her hands while typing. And she's like, she's the third.
Yeah, it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. And so she gets them together. They hire a male director, which they think is maybe the only way that they're going to get this movie made, to come in and rewrite it. But they've said that he was really great, really gentle the whole time. Dolly Parton has said, you know, obviously I could have never made this movie with a director who wasn't Colin Higgins, a director who was mean the entire time. And that it's the secret spice of these three women together really powerhousing this film. I think at this point everybody knows the plot, but if they don't, it's literally about three women who all work in an office. Lily Tomlin is the head of the secretaries, essentially. Dolly Parton is the boss's personal secretary, right? Is that?
Yeah, I don't think that
because he has a lot of like personal assistants.
Lily is like also doing number stuff.
Yes.
The reason why she's upset is because they give a promotion to a guy who
Yes.
she has trained, and they're like, listen, our clients want to see a man doing the numbers and stuff. So I think she might like be more like an accounting.
Yes, I think you're correct.
And she's the working mom of the group.
Yes, and then Jane Fonda is the meek, mousy woman who's just joining the workforce after getting a divorce and coming forward, and she's assigned to Lily to train, which is another like thing on Lily's plate that she doesn't really want to do. And everybody hates Dolly at first because they think she's sleeping with the boss, which is a rumor the boss has started. And essentially they, after one particularly bad day at work, where, like you said, Lily finds out that she's passed over for this promotion, they like decide to get their revenge, but jokingly, like they talk about it, but then it becomes very real, and they basically hold this man hostage and reinvent the entire workforce for that company.
Yeah,
to the point
they created a feminine utopia, a workers, Krakoa, if you will, and it's all lovely. It's a wonderful, vision of like what it could be like to work in an office.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's really funny that Lily again is like tasked with being that working class woman who is overwhelmed with like just everything, and like she's got the kids, and she's got like the job where she's asked to do a lot and more without the pay. She is the like vessel for like the every woman, because Jane's character is kind of like the scandal, like oh my god, like a divorced woman who's joining the workforce. Like obviously that woman existed, but like Lily is really the every woman in the group, and of course she's the one who's like suspicious of Dolly Parton and doesn't understand, and what's the magic is like people coming together, understanding where they're at. I mean, like, oh, Dolly Parton is just as oppressed as I am, and and them understanding their oppression, and like that they all can lift each other up. That's like the crux of the entire thing. But Lily has the kind of like most down the middle part, but I think because she is the comedian of the bunch, she really kind of is like the buoy for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. She's sort of the guiding light, if you will. They fantastic movie. So much fun.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you said a lot of heavy things in there, but that's one of the brilliant things of the movie is it manages to pull a lot of heavy stuff off without feeling like you're being preached to, which was exactly Jane Fonda's fear when they were making it a drama, was that it all felt too much like a lecture and not enough like here's an actual peek at what's happening.
Right. Well, all the gags are so funny. I mean, she literally does Snow White drag in the like little dream sequence and stuff.
I think there was something in that coffee.
I think you're right.
I think it was poison.
Right again.
I think you did it. Oh. But why? Why?
Why do you think?
Because I'm a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot?
Bingo.
Hers has always been my favorite growing up. The like little skull and crossbones when she puts the poison from the ring into the coffee. I always wanted a poison ring as a kid. I think it's because of this movie. The animals, the chair that like rises up so she can launch him out the window.
There's so much physical comedy. I mean, she has, like I was making a very poor joke version of this earlier, she has the great line. She's like, I'm a woman, I demand to be respected. And he's like, run along now, little girly. But the movie has everything.
After that, she immediately does another movie that was written by Jane Wagner, called The Incredible Shrinking Woman. Jane Wagner has kind of distanced herself from this because she says it was basically a majority rewritten after, it got into the hands of the executives and whatnot, and they took out a lot of the like snark and whatnot from it, a lot of the like blaming that, because, and you can tell too, this movie is called The Incredible Shrinking Woman. It is about a mother who is just sort of overrun by life as it currently is. Her husband is played by Charles Grodin. He works for this horrible manufacturing company that makes basically all these, like every product imaginable, but they all have like toxic components, and because of her exposure to them, she is literally shrinking. She's not, it's not just the idea that she's shrinking from society, like she's physically getting smaller, and she has these kids that are kind of wild and so loud.
The worst kids.
I literally was like, why is this movie so fucking loud the entire time? And so the movie is like this kind of diatribe about like unchecked corporations and consumerism, and how we allow this stuff like into our lives when we really don't know, where it's from or what it can do and everything. She also plays a bunch of other characters in this movie. She gets to play the Judith character. She plays her, who is her neighbor in this movie. She gets to be a lot of the mouthpiece of the anti-capitalist stuff that's happening in the movie. I had never seen this before. It is always something that had been on my watch list. I did not like this movie.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before either. I thought it was interesting. A lot of the movies, I'm like, wow, she really was commanding this amount of like power where she can get this type of movie made at all. Like, it goes from critiquing consumerism to like literally man in a gorilla suit jokes.
Yeah.
Like, it's, again, it's not as sharp, I think, as it wants to be, and kind of gets lost in the sauce, but it is very like interesting. And the moment where she like comes onto the show, because she was famous, everyone's like is obsessed with The Incredible Shrinking Woman. She comes onto a talk show, and they just want to like talk to her, and it's not like they're sad for her. They don't want to hear that her life is hard or sad, even though it is, because she's the size of like fucking Thumbelina. Yeah. They ask her, like, why do you think this is happening to you? And she says, and she kind of has to like bite the bullet and say, I don't know, there's no conclusive whatever, for the sake of like keeping her husband's job safe, whatever. There's like this like weird plot of bad guy shadow organizations that run the world because they make money, whatever. Yeah, it's a weird mushy film, but super interesting and crazy that it exists.
Well, Mike, I'll tell you, it has mostly been a nightmare. But some good things have happened, like getting to come on your show here. I mean, nobody cared what I had to say when I was my normal height. For
Excuse
instance,
me, Pat. We'll be right back after these messages.
After that, she does another film a couple years on. So she takes kind of a tiny break. And then in 1984, it comes out with All of Me, which is a film that she does with Steve Martin. It's funny because Steve Martin had kind of already done a similar film to this called The Man with Two Brains, but essentially it's this movie about a man who gets, well, it's complicated. He's a lawyer, and he's working for this awful rich woman who has basically been dying her whole life. And she has this plan to have her soul implanted into another healthy woman so she can live out her life. Antics ensue, and the soul ends up in Steve Martin's body. And so he needs to get Lily Tomlin out of his body and back into this other woman, so she can go on about her life, and he no longer has to let her, like, she's literally controlling the left half of his body.
I can't remember if we watched this for Body Swaps or not. I think we said
we
it
did
wasn't.
Not. And we specifically did not, because the problem is that there wasn't really.
It's an invasion. It's not a swap.
Yes, exactly. It's technically a possession movie.
Right.
And I had never seen this before. I think there's certainly dated elements to it. There's the part like I could do without the like Eastern religion stuff, which feels like it's played for laughs. I could deal without the magical black friend, which is certainly a big trope in this movie. But I really liked this. I thought she was so funny. I thought Steve Martin was funny. There were times where I was like watching it and was like, God, Lily's so brilliant. I had to remind myself, she's not doing anything.
Yeah.
She's voiceover. That's
Yeah.
all Steve Martin.
Yeah. I mean, they're both like from that time period.
Yeah.
It's like comedy titans, right?
Yeah.
Which reminds me, why has she been on Only Murders in the Building?
Oh yeah, truly.
Anyway.
Maybe there was some like weird Netflix contract that's like you
Oh,
can't
maybe,
do anything
yeah.
Hulu for a bit. I think the other thing that I really love about this movie is she gives this woman, this dying rich woman, an actual character. So when you start this film, you're like, God, this woman, she's so nasty and mean. This Edwina Cutwater,
What a
you're just like,
name.
yeah, you're like, why does she suck so much? And then like really like lays it on the fact that like this was a woman who didn't have a life, who spent most of her life sick and like prepared to die. And all she's wanted to do is live. And so I think it's not the like we talk so much about the like Adam Sandler effect on this show.
Yes.
Where it's like a movie where it's like somebody who's really shitty the entire time, and at the end they're like, got you. You were the one being shitty. Like you should have accepted them for that. Like this movie, she really does have that turn where she's like, oh God, like because I wasn't able to live my life, there was no reason for me to take that out on everybody else.
Yeah.
And there's all these sensations that I missed because I was so into my own death, essentially, that it put blinders on everything I did in my entire life. I also do like that there is kind of a gay joke in this movie where Steve Martin goes to have sex with Victoria Tennant's character, who is the woman that she's supposed to be taking over the body of. And Lily Tomlin's like, oh my God, is this what sex is like? And so and like jokingly, she's like thinking about men. She's thinking about Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. And he's like, well, could you throw some women in there for me? Like I can't focus if you're just thinking about men.
I know my head is filled with pictures of Clark Gable taking his shirt off.
I know, isn't that hot?
No, it's sort of cooling me off, if you know what I mean.
It's making me tingle like crazy, Roger.
Great. Now just throw in a couple of women on top of them and we're in business, okay?
Okay.
Is it all right now?
Sort of. She's got the whole cast of Gone with the Wind humping in my head.
Roger.
Oh, dear.
Oh, Clark, Vivian, and Olivia. Oh, Ashley.
And after that, in 85, she sort of creates what is her magnum opus of stage shows, which is The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe, which was written by Jane Wagner, who co-produces it. It's truly an amazing show. Once again, some of it is dated, absolutely. They go on to make a movie out of it in the early 90s. It's really fascinating because, especially in comparison to the film they made out of Appearing Nightly, there's no audience in the film version of Searching for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe. And so I think it's fascinating because you get so much more of the dramatic elements and you get so much more digging into the drama of these characters' lives than you do in Appearing Nightly, because you don't have a constant reminder that you're supposed to laugh. And I think that's sort of the way that Lily wanted it. And unlike that, because if you went and saw the show, you would just see Lily in her pants and her shirt just slipping in and out of these characters. Whereas in the movie, you're seeing her doing these characters, and then flash, she is those characters, and she's in the situation. She's in a diner, she's on the street, she's in a board meeting,
costumes,
costume, like, the one rich woman who's talking about the terrible haircut she has and whatnot, and the kids, the like rebellion kids that like their parents
the
don't
15-year-old, the skater boy, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's truly a remarkable piece of both film and theater, and very worth it. And I'm glad I watched it before watching I saw this a lot when I was a kid, and
Really?
I'd forgotten about it. Yeah, because it used to be on HBO all the time when I was a kid. And I remember watching it so many times as a child, and I'd completely forgotten about it. And I'm glad when I rewatched it, I watched it before appearing nightly, because I like watching it as an adult and like really experiencing that like silence that it has.
Mhm.
It plays a lot with silence.
Yeah.
And then watching appearing nightly and being like, oh yeah, like I don't think it would have worked if I was constantly being informed when to laugh. Like I got to decide what I found was funny instead of having an audience like ha 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 ha,
Yeah.
every time she tells a joke. Did you get a chance to watch it all? It's up on YouTube, but it's in like 14 parts. So
It is 8 parts.
8 parts. Thank
and
you.
I did watch them all. Yeah, it's an incredible piece of work. I mean, it just feels so quintessentially New York. It feels so quintessential. Like, man, when an artist fucking has something to say and they figure out how to say it in a smart, entertaining way. I was laughing. I was kind of like taken aback. She's poking at these progressive movements that she is a part of, that she believes in. I was like, whoa, I mean, this is to be able to take the piss out of, women's lib, to take the piss out of, these things where she basically is like, yeah, you did it. You went to a rally, girl. You did.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel so good. I mean, yeah, I really liked it.
And just to backtrack a little bit, because like I said, that gets turned into a film in 1991. Before she does that, she does do Big Business, which is another big screen comedy. Big Business famously is a movie. I don't know if we mentioned this in our Goldie Hawn episode, but it was a movie written for Barbara Streisand and Goldie Hawn, and it didn't come out that way. But it's a kind of zany comedy.
Why have we talked about this before? We've talked about this before, right?
Yeah, I don't know why. I truly don't. Because we've never done a Bet episode either. Maybe it is the Barbara Streisand of it. Maybe it is the Goldie Hawn of it. But essentially, it's about two different sets of twins who are swapped at birth. One very rich city twins, played by Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin, and one like down home country twins that are Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin. And clearly, like, the Lillys are supposed to be sisters and the Bettes are supposed to be sisters, but antics ensued and they got separated. And basically,
and the Bettes are supposed to both be the city gals, and the Lillys are supposed to both be the country gals.
Yes.
And all of these side characters keep running into these different versions of Lily and Bette. And it is until very late in the movie that they finally run into each other in this kind of like very funny restroom scene where like they do a whole like
it's the very famous Harpo Marx in the mirror sort of doing the mirror back and forth, and finally one Bette grabs the other Bette's nose and the jig is up.
Yeah. For Lily specifically, I think the funniest thing she does, she's the like, as the Southern version, she does her like little snake stuff.
Yes.
And then she shakes her bracelet towards them.
Are they real? They're robots. They want to kill us and take our places. Oh, you've seen too many movies.
You get back. You just get bashed.
We must be in some kind of... Now, there's got to be an explanation for this.
That is the dumbest damn thing I've
Please
ever
don't
heard.
shout. Oh, you're such a hick. There's UFO written all over this thing.
They're probably relatives.
Relatives? How can they be? Listen to them. They're imbeciles.
I've seen this movie before. This movie is like not good, really.
No, it's not. And this is another movie I watched as a kid, and I was like, oh, haha, so funny. There's not that many jokes in this movie.
No, it's really not good, and it's unfortunate because I wish it was more fun. I wish it was the most fun really is like the two like DL gay guys who are like Bette Midler's assistant. I don't like the characters that like they're playing. It's just kind of a bummer,
Yeah.
It's all in the sake for like, we need to have the extremes of like the city Bette Midler is so fucking uncaring, and not only is she uncaring and like a city gal, she fucking like hates her ex-husband and her kid, Seth Green. Like, and it's all in service of like, we need to have like the most aggressively opposite as possible. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it also like short shrifts, like it doesn't make sense to have, country version of Lily Tomlin's character is kind of like this meek, like she's just a good person. Like it's not like the conceit just kind of doesn't really work. And like at the end of the day, there's only one villain, and it's like the city Bette Midler, and it's kind of like falls apart. They are both funny, they are both entertaining to watch. I mean, the movie only works because it's the two of them, but like, no.
I think also, and this is just supposition based on like hearing them talk about it. I feel like they didn't. The filmmakers were more concerned about how they were going to pull off the effects and whatnot than they were about what movie they were making. Because you talked about the snake thing; those were all inventions of Lily, and they kept telling her to stop doing it.
Yeah.
And finally, she like when it came to like the rattle. She's like, just do a take with me doing it, please. And that's what ends up in the movie because that's some of the genuinely funny stuff. I'm sure they saw
it's the
it
most
in edit.
interesting stuff.
Yeah,
because like the stuff where she's just like, oh, I don't know, like what do we... It's just like they infantilize these women. It's like, God, they get nothing. Wouldn't it have been more funny if like both the city, like Lily and Bette, were bitches, and both like the country girls are country girls and not like whiny like sad girls? Like, why can't we have, if you want to be a stereotype, fine, but like they can all be strong, like, strong-willed women, but just from like different points of view, not like wimpy baby girls versus like bitch city girl. Ugh.
As I previously mentioned, Search for Signs of Intelligent Life. And then the 90s happened. And I'm going to breeze through a lot of this because a lot of it is cameos. A lot of it is, I think this, I'll be honest, is like I said, Searching for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe is her like magnum opus. And so I think she's like, now I'm going to get paid. And now I'm going to get the money that like, I am literally being called an icon. I'm going to get what's owed to me for that. So she does Woody Allen's Shadows and Fog. We don't have to talk about it. She does The Player, a bit part as herself. 93, she does the Beverly Hillbillies movie. Terrible movie. Also in 93, she reteams with Robert Altman, plays Doreen Piggott in Shortcuts. Speaking of another 3-hour movie, in that movie, she plays a waitress who accidentally hits a child. She's married to hits a child with her car, I should say. There's a difference between hitting a child and hitting them with a large vehicle. And she's married to Tom Waits, and her daughter, by the way, is Lily Taylor, which, by the way, genius casting. Whoever, I mean, obviously that's Robert Altman, but like brilliant. She does Flirting with Disaster, which is her first intersection with David O. Russell. This is a movie I really liked when I was younger. I rewatched it for this and was like, I fucking hate all these people. I don't want to deal with this. 98, she does Gryffindor's Tribe, and I hope she got a pretty penny for that. Gryffindor's Tribe is awful. Truly bad. Tea with Mussolini in 1999. This is fun because she gets to play the idea that she is gay in like World War II. However, this once again, I do not like this movie. I gave it my 1-star review during our share episode.
Also, I just want to like quickly, she's the voice of Miss Frizzle.
Yes. Oh yeah.
From 94 to 97 in the Magic School Bus, which is crazy.
And not to like downplay, like she is in between all these things. She is doing TV. She does The X-Files. She does Homicide: Life on the Street. She does
Murphy Brown.
She gets a job in the 2000s on The West Wing for a couple seasons. I never watched The West Wing. I know that's a huge blind spot for me.
She's the replacement secretary, another secretary role.
Yes.
She's good in it.
I'm sure she is. It's one of those shows I've always meant to watch and just never. Orange County, 2002. Once again, very small cameo. Going to stop at 2004's I Heart Huckabees. I think famously because the thing that's most remembered, though today that top 10 movie New York Times thing came out, I saw a lot of people putting I Heart Huckabees on their top 10 of the 2000s. I was like, really? But famously, this is where her and David O. Russell have a huge blow-ups on the set. He literally calls her a cunt.
Fuck you! I'm just trying to fuck fucking help you. Do you understand me?
No, no, you
I'm being a fucking collaborator. I was trying to help you figure out the fucking picture. Hey, bitch, I'm not here to be fucking yelled at. I worked on this fucking thing for 3 fucking years, not to have some fucking cunt yell at me.
She's talked about this sort of ad nauseum. She didn't find out till years later because it was one of the first big viral YouTube videos. And she said she was in an interview and somebody was like, well, what about the YouTube video? And she's like, what YouTube video? What? And she's talked about, she's like, I would work again with him in a heartbeat. He is an eccentric guy and everything. I will say this, though. He has a terrible history of abuse. Amy Adams said he made her life hell when she worked with him. He punched George Clooney on the set of Three Kings. Like, he seems like a very toxic person. And Lily Tomlin has said, like, he would do things like jump rope in his underwear in front of the cast and crew as part of his and so, like, he just seems like a creep. I'm sorry.
Is Amy Adams, was he in American Hustle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Not in, but he directed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I started this film and then I was like, I do not have the brain power to try and ingest all of what is apparently going on. I was like, I was hoping for like a light little movie. 'Twas not it. I'm so sorry. I'm sure it's a fine film. But
in my opinion, it's not, but I know a lot of people like it.
yeah, I mean, like, okay.
Yeah.
I was happy to see, like, I saw like the first 10-ish minutes. No, I gave it like 20 minutes and I was like, you know what? There's just too much fucking going on in this movie. And it doesn't seem like she's like really what this is all about. Who's her like husband in this movie?
Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman's wig was really throwing me off.
Yeah.
I was like, I
think her wig is also like a very throwing off. Like,
well, she kind of looks like the costumer from The Incredibles.
Yes. Edna Mode.
Edna Mode come to life. Even though I know Edna Mode is, modeled after a real woman. But yeah, Dustin Hoffman's wig was really throwing me off. And I was like, I'm sure this is a very smart, heady movie. Not for me, not right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I knew a lot of philosophy majors who loved it in college. I thought that was a big red flag. But
I almost just spit, everybody.
You can see me on the viral video with David O. Russell in the movie years ago.
Oh, did he yell at you or something?
Oh, did he yell at me?
Oh, I remember this now.
I yelled at him too.
I remember this. Thank you for reminding me.
But he's a good
about
friend.
That. But yeah, but you lost your temper. You lost your patience.
I lost it with good cause.
You play it back every once in a while?
No. I don't. I guess I might.
But
wish my mother was alive so I could have played it for her.
She would have loved that. Huh?
2006, she reteams for a final time with Robert Altman, doing his final film of Prairie Home Companion. She co-stars with Meryl Streep. They play sisters. Also, is Lindsay Lohan is Meryl Streep's daughter.
Yeah, she's
in the movie.
The aunt, right?
Yeah, and she's the aunt. We have talked about this before because of Lindsay Lohan. I know this is not everybody's favorite Robert Altman movie. I do really love this movie. It's not a perfect film, but I can't separate the idea of him thinking about his own mortality with this movie. And like, listen, there's other problems afterward. Like Garrison Keillor was found out to be kind of a sex pest and whatnot. And so there was a whole Me Too thing that happened later on. But there is something about this movie that I will always love. That year also, Robert Altman wins the honorary Oscar. And so they bring out her and Meryl Streep to do the intro, which was written by Jane Wagner in the Robert Altman style.
Queen shit.
And tonight we are pleased to honor
Wait a minute.
a man.
No,
we're honoring a man.
A man who we honor, that's
what?
A man who didn't, you're reading my line, a man who didn't play by the rules.
Yeah, that's what I said, who didn't play by the rules or stick to the script.
Stick to the script.
I am, Meryl.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying that Robert Altman didn't stick to the script. He colors outside the lines.
And he wants actors to do the same thing.
Yeah.
He
doesn't want us to act.
No, and I'm grateful for that.
Pink Panther 2 is a movie I can't believe she did. I guess it was a favor to Steve Martin. It's all sexist jokes. It's all jokes about how like Inspector Clouseau is so horny that he would sexually harass any woman that he ever meets, and she's trying to teach him how not to do that. And I was just like, we we got to get you out of this movie, Lily. She does the English dub of Ponyo in 2009 as well, the Miyazaki movie. I think she doesn't do another movie again until 2013's Admission, in which she plays Tina Fey's mom. Admission we've talked briefly a bit before because it
Paul
also
Rudd?
stars Paul Rudd, as the love interest. It's not a good comedy. It's not like, and it's really frustrating because I think you're right. I think the character of Lily at this point has become so ingrained. She's already done Desperate Housewives at this point too, where she's playing kind of an angry older woman. And in this one, like, it's too much. It's like that she's like angry feminist to the nth degree, and it's not a real character.
She kind of becomes a caricature of herself.
Yeah.
They're like, we need a angry feminist who, like, you know, is left over from the 70s. And like, I imagine when people were writing scripts are like Lily Tomlin type, or, you know, like someone like Lily Tomlin. And yeah, all the characters from, you know, Laugh-In and Signs of the Universe and all, like, none of them, like, they're all gone by this point.
The furthest any of them make it is in the early 90s. She does 3 Edith Ann animated specials with that character, and that's it. Like, you're right, like those characters sort of end at
I think Search for Signs really is like kind of the culmination. And like, you know, there's a little bit of character play in Big Business because it's 2 distinct people, but like that's like the last dregs of it. Everything after that. But then also, to be fair, there's not much centered around her after that.
Yes.
She is a stock. I mean, they're at the fucking 90s and everyone thought everything's fine now. And it's kind of like out of fashion. Like, no one's really talking about, like, liberation has failed, essentially.
Right. And,
you know?
and that fully carries over into the 2000s, because like we're already in the 2010s at this point, but you know, we've already had George W. Bush as well too. So we've like seen the darkness, and there's a little bit of everybody. Like, I talked about it in our Saoirse episode. I may have cut it out, but like, there was also the sort of false hope of the Obama years too. And
is that not when Grace and Frankie comes out though? Like,
right.
It's like the Obama era is like, and she's like, okay, now like me and Jane are like back and we're like smoking weed and like our husbands are gay or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, but largely the things that they were fighting for in the 70s just did, like the 9 to 5. Isn't there a whole documentary about like still working 9 to 5?
Yep.
Like that nothing happened, or the movement failed. We failed.
If the movement worked, it worked in the smallest of increments. It worked, you know, it pushed in inches where people thought we would be pushed in miles. And
I mean, like we got gay marriage, but like now it's like, Jesus fuck, like,
and that almost just feels like a concession that felt like a reason to shut people up, and now once again it's on the chopping block, because people like, that never should have been the goal. That was never the end goal for a lot of, I mean, I'm certainly sure it was for a lot of more conservative queer people, but for a lot of us, that was never the full end goal. And then also it feels the other side is like, well, you aren't grateful for it. So like, we the straight white people of the world can take it away. I will say the one good thing that Admission does is it teams her up with Paul Weitz. I don't necessarily, in my opinion, love any of the stuff that she does with Paul Weitz after that, but I'm glad that he like kept her working, because the next movie she does, Grandma, is a film in which her and Julia Garner. This was my first exposure to Julia Garner, by the way.
Same.
I saw this in the theater. This
same
80-minute movie,
like in 2015, right? Like,
yeah, essentially, Julia Garner is her granddaughter, and she comes to her because she needs a abortion, and Lily Tomlin is a once famous writer who's basically squandered all of her money, and they need something like $500 for the abortion.
It's like $600 to go.
Yes.
You know, and they basically drive around town try and scrounge up the money because she has an appointment that day at 3:45 or
Yes.
whatever. And so like they stop at like the baby daddy, and
they stop by Sam Elliott's house, who's a former lover of Lily Tomlin before her character came out, that she was married to. Laverne Cox is in this movie as tattoo artist.
Judy Greer.
Yeah, Judy Greer as her like ex newer lover, because she also had a woman that she was in love with for years that had just died, and then she started dating Judy Greer after the death. I fucking love Judy Greer. Marcia Gay Harden as Lily Tomlin's daughter, Julia Garner's mother.
So good.
Yeah. I don't love this movie. I don't dislike this movie. I think it is a perfectly good, like 3-star, 3.5-star movie. Like for me, I think there's too many, like for an 80-minute movie, there's too many, like, let's fill it with shots of nature and stuff. Like if you're pad with something else. Like there could be more stuff happening. I think the scene with her and Sam Elliott is so good, especially from an actor's standpoint. And the idea that she comes to this man for money and doesn't tell him what it's for until the end of the scene, and he refuses to give it to her, not because he has any strong moralistic beliefs about abortion, but they were going to have a child together, and she aborted that child without telling him.
I am sorry that I lied to you. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you. That's all I'm sorry for. But Carl, I am sorry for that.
It was my decision, too.
It's my body. It's always been my body.
And then you fucking go and have a stranger's baby.
I wanted a baby. I just didn't want a husband.
2018, she very famously does Aunt May in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I love her take on Aunt May. I love the idea that she, like, apparently has some sort of past with Doc Ock. Like,
right. And also and like is fully aware.
Yes.
Aunt May. She's like the God. I want to say Jarvis, which is I guess also correct, but I really want to say fucking Batman's.
Oh, Alfred.
She's basically
Yeah.
Alfreding around the spider lair.
That's very good. In 2022, though, this movie did really come out in 2023. She does Moving On, which is her, to this date, final collaboration with Paul Weitz, which is a film that he wrote and directed, in which she and Jane Fonda get together after a mutual friend of theirs has died. And Jane Fonda has decided she's going to kill this mutual friend's widow husband, played by Malcolm McDowell, because at some point in the past, Malcolm McDowell had raped her and she kept it a secret, and it ruined her relationships too, because she was in a marriage with Richard Roundtree, who's great in this movie. And Lily Tomlin was she's an old lesbian, and she was in love with this woman who passed away, and they had a relationship, and this woman couldn't handle it and basically like re-straighted herself. It's another movie where I'm like, part of me really wants to love this. I love ideas in it. I think this is tonally all over the place.
Again, I just kept thinking, like, from top to bottom, Lily is making these movies about queer people, about, women. And I don't think it's a perfect movie by a long shot, but I was like, wow, she is putting her money where her mouth is. And I mean, though I guess I don't fucking know, the next year or whatever, she does 80 for Brady. But like, I don't know, maybe she's using the money to do that. I don't know. Is it, I was moved in certain ways in Moving On.
Yes. And I agree. Like, I was too. I just found the tonal whiplash of,
Correct.
I liked both things. I was just having problems with watching both things try to exist in the same place. You did just mention 80 for Brady. I do just want to say, by the way, and we've talked about Grace and Frankie because we talked about it on our Jane Fonda episode. I feel like we also talked about another episode. I've tried twice. I did not try this time. I just can't get into it. It's just not for me.
No.
It I'm sure there's, and like you said, like it's very Obama era. It ends in 2022. Like it just is what it is. But yeah, 80 for Brady is her final movie to date. It's a movie which her, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, former subject, and also Sally Field, former subject.
We've done all of them. Oh my
We've done
God.
all
We've
of
not,
them.
only, we've not only completed the 9 to 5, we've completed the 80 for Brady.
And it's a commercial for Tom Brady, in
Yep.
which these 4 older women who really got drawn together by football for whatever interesting means. Like Sally Field loves it because of the mathematics involved and whatnot, and that they Lily Tomlin tries to win them tickets to the Super Bowl, and basically gets them there sort of under false pretenses. They don't actually win the tickets and whatnot, and it's because her doctor has alerted her that she might have a reoccurrence of cancer that previously menaced her in her life.
Isn't that so crazy though? Like, it's the threat of the potential for the
Right.
reoccurrence. Because
Yes.
if I'm remembering correctly, she finally opens up the thing and it's like, fine.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
she's
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a commercial for Tom Brady. I again like wanted to have fun. Was the fun in the room with us? I could not find her.
Yeah. I mean, and that's sort of like where her career is at the moment. She's not like, once again, not really doing comedy. They did revive, she did years later in the early 2000s revive Searching for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe. And then in 2021, Cecily Strong did it. It was a limited engagement, I believe.
Yeah.
In terms of her personal life, as we've mentioned, she is a homosexual, which is why we're doing her for Pride, why you voted for her for May Madness. In 2008, she said, quote, "Everybody in the industry was certainly aware of my sexuality and of Jane. In interviews, I always reference Jane and I talk about Jane." On December 31st of 2013, Lily Tomlin and Jane Wagner married in a private ceremony in Los Angeles after being together for 42 years, which
Incredible.
I love. Obviously, we've talked about our politics. She's a feminist, gay friendly. She's been doing that her entire career. She's incredibly awarded. She's very close to an EGOT. She unfortunately does not have an Oscar, but she does have an Emmy, several Emmys. She has a Tony. She has both a Tony for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe and the special Tony she got for appearing nightly. And she does have a Grammy for her comedy album. So she's so close to EGOTing. If we could just get her the final Oscar role that she deserves. And then just real quick, in terms of charities, because I do like talking about charities, she's a big supporter of the Ed Asner Family Center, GLSEN, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, which is about education in schools and like anti-bullying and whatnot around gay children and whatnot. She's a big supporter of the Los Angeles LGBT Center, Petco Foundation, Screen Actors Guild Foundation, Save the Chimps. She's big on animals as well too. But yeah, I think that really wraps up Lily Tomlin. Why don't we move into our 1-star reviews and talk about some of her work that we didn't particularly like?
I'm just so scared. My 1-star review just has to be 1978's Moment by Moment. I'm so sorry.
It's bad.
I'm so sorry, Jane. And apparently, like, there's a lot of nonsense behind the scenes. The movie was like taken away. Like, I don't think she had like final like edit on it at the end. Like we mentioned up top, this was her movie with John Travolta, where she's an older woman. Her character is kind of like socialite. She has like this frenemy who's always like creeping around, wanting to like get in her hot goss to like talk shit. She meets him at a pharmacy, right? Like,
yes.
And he kind of like is just this drifter guy who he's like that weird guy at the store. He like just wish he would leave you alone. You just want to do your business, but he keeps like bothering her and like keeps like, and she's on the beach and well, there he fucking is on the beach walking around and he's like, I better take my shirt off. And she's like, okay. It's just like so uncomfortable. Like for a lot of this movie, you're like, this woman's being like accosted.
Yeah.
And then
he's stalking her.
And then it like shifts into somehow an even more uncomfortable mode where she's like, wait, no, you're right. I am being a bitch. And like, for whatever reason, opens up her home and heart to him. And I don't know if it's like because she's really sad and lonely, I guess. But like, the worst part, Gavin, is where he's like, they fuck. They have this kind of, and it's not sexy at all. It's a horrible scene.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. The next day, John Travolta all of a sudden is like gaslighting her. He's like, I'm not just some like trick, some like one thing. Like I don't know what kind of guy you think I am, what kind of girl you are, and all you want me. Like, he basically is like, you just want me for my body, and I'm not that kind of guy.
Can I tell you something? I've never had cheap sex before. I was sort of looking forward to it.
And you thought that I would be the perfect one to do this.
I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, you're like, you are that guy.
And so all of a sudden she's like he basically negs her into this relationship. It's just completely uncomfortable. I couldn't even watch. I had to like turn away. That secondhand embarrassment thing, was really hitting hard. I am assuming, I guess, if this movie was taken away from Jane and it was kind of like executives all making random fucking decisions just to kind of like put together what they thought a movie should be like, and like, I'm surprised that even like Lily went along with it. Like, why the fuck would my character like take this shit? Why would I, this guy is just like so toxic. I can't remember a movie last time watching a movie where I was like, this every part of this is horrendous. During production, Universal raised concerns about Wagner, hired Saturday Night Fever's director of photography, Ralph D. Bodie, to assist with the direction, though he is only credited as the technical advisor. One of the executives tried to have Wagner fired.
Wow.
But Lily and John Travolta, thankfully were like, no, fuck off. But I think they were like, as they were making the movie, everyone knew, oh, this sucks. Lily said of the experience, John and I were totally unprepared. We thought it was a small, sweet, lightly funny movie. We were not prepared for what others thought.
Not my 1-star view, though. I can totally see that. I think it's because it so quickly left my head after watching it. I just found it so unforgettable. I think there's a lot in the 90s that Lily Tomlin probably doesn't look back on fondly. She probably looks back at the checks and fondly, but I think the real low point in her career is 1998's Krippendorf's Tribe, which is problematic for so many reasons. I mean, this is literally a movie from 1998, which is just full of blackface. But it's a movie in which James Krippendorf, played by Richard Dreyfuss, is a respected anthropologist, and he claims to have found a lost tribe of New Guinea. And his wife works with him, and she unfortunately dies very early on in the movie, and he's left with his 3 children, one of which is Natasha Lyonne, which, by the way, never explained why his daughter has a New York accent and nobody else in their family does.
Sure.
And he gets told that he's supposed to present his paper, that he's been on like sabbatical, like researching this lost tribe.
Is this Dharma of Dharma and Greg?
Yeah. And
Wow.
Jenna Elfman, who's like a new young anthropologist at the college he works at, comes and is like, oh, you're presenting your paper tomorrow, which is like a thing that doesn't happen. Like you know when you're presenting papers, but whatever. And he goes and he makes up a tribe, and then him and his family proceed to like create fake videos of the tribe in which they paint themselves black and do like stereotypically tribal things. And Jenna Elfman finds out midway through the movie that the tribe isn't real, so he gets her involved. Like, well, he first of all films it, like gets her to paint herself like a native woman as well, and has sex with her on camera.
Oh
and,
my God.
And this is all played for laughs. And
Sure.
and that footage is given to like a nature documentary so they can like expose more and more. And Jenna Elfman is seen as kind of bad because she wants the fame from this, so she like goes along with it and everything. If you've noticed, I haven't mentioned Lily Tomlin yet, and the reason I haven't is because it's not a huge role, but she's basically the film's antagonist, and she is only an antagonist because she's a woman. That's it. She is Krippendorf's rival in this anthropology department, and she hates him, but it's okay because everybody else hates her. And why do they hate her? Because she's a woman. Like, it doesn't, she's not even presented as like particularly nasty. She's just kind of a woman existing who's like, I don't understand why.
A woman in science?
Yeah.
Oh, unconventional, Gerald, for God's sake. This is tabloid anthropology. The Shalmikidmu demi-bra.
It's tabloid.
You're jealous.
Oh, and you're ridiculous. I've never been jealous of anyone in my life.
Bullshit. The Shalmikidmu have captured the imagination of the public. Unlike your musty old Galinkas, which by comparison strike me as, what's that word, boring?
Krippendorf is sensationalizing this tribe for his own financial gain.
Oh, get a grip!
Professor, please, just please. Now, James's style may not be to your liking, but Miss Michelli is absolutely right. Thanks to Krippendorf's tribe, this department's reputation is growing by leaps and bounds, and I, for one, am delighted.
Well, you may be falling for this Shalmikidmu crap, but every instinct in my body tells me that this stinks to high heaven.
Excuse me, Ruth?
I truly don't know why she took this role. It's against everything I think Lily Tomlin stands for, other than the money. And yeah, it's a horrible watch. It's racist, sexist. I'm sure it's homophobic at some point, but I checked out at a certain point. And
yeah,
but it's so bad. And fuck Richard Dreyfuss. So.
Yeah. I was thinking, I was like, wait, don't we not fuck with Richard Dreyfuss? This, I mean, I don't think I've seen a more 90s VHS cover than this whole thing. They said, we need freaky deaky fake African guy and slutty Jenna Elfman.
That by the way, the fake African guy is Richard Dreyfuss. So.
Yeah, yes, of course. Well, yes. In like alleged tribal paint, I guess.
Yep.
And Jenna Elfman in the sluttiest little black dress, because obviously.
Sure. And why, you know?
And unfortunate. I feel like Lily should have known better.
Yeah.
Like, were the Miss Frizzle checks not coming in anymore? Like, what was going on?
All right, let's get out of here and let's get into our 5-star reviews.
Okay, I thought I knew what I was going to talk about, but I fucking saw the search for signs of intelligent life in the universe today, and it just like blew my fucking mind. It really is astounding. Like I knew Lily could cook, but I didn't know that like she could cook this way. There is a specific portion of this movie that I want to call out where she plays two sex workers, and they're in a car. It's a portion of the movie where they actually filmed her in costume.
It looks like the back of a limo, kind of.
Yeah. A John has picked them up, but turns out it's not a regular John. It's a writer who, you know, wants to talk to them about their lives. And she's playing these two women, and she is just like the main one. I think it's Tina, is talking, you know, about like how you're the second writer who wants to talk to us, you know, this year. And she goes on this like, she has this huge monologue about meeting this young boy who is ashamed about, you know, because he's gay. And she talks about like the only reason why you should be ashamed is for feeling ashamed right now. And as these two sex workers are talking, and they do talk about sex, and they talk about how they have this idea for phone sex, and like that's how you reach millions, and you don't have to actually hook up with anybody.
What you said before, you wasn't interested what's between my legs, huh? Just my life history? I got news. What's between her legs is her life history. Tina, well, me and Brandy got entrepreneurial plans. Telephone sex, reach millions. No germs and no hand-to-hand combat. Let's stop for a chocolate soda. Here, go around the block. Oh, Tina, look at that scrawny kid. Hey, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where you are? Hooker specs! Leave me alone! She call us? Some kind of speck. That little throwaway. A few weeks she'll be all different, right, Tina? If she lasts.
And one of the workers is like, hey, well, the byline it's going to say by the writer. It should say lived by us, don't you think? And then like it's one of those moments like in Nashville where she's just kind of processing the information. And as the camera passes over her, she's like, yeah, this entire fucking thing is about the creation of art and what it means and like its place in our life and our society. The I guess bigger, broader thesis is like, or plot, if you will, is there is a Trudy, who is the bag lady that we mentioned before. She communicates with aliens and has flashes of different people. And so as she flashes through, she's going to all these different characters. And they don't intersect per se, but they do. But they kind of do, I guess, is like the best way I can talk about it, because one of those sex workers does mention that young boy goes up to be a very famous hairstylist who ends up giving the bad haircut to one of the other characters. So there are some connections. You can like just kind of sit back and vibe and like laugh at the absurdity of some of these things, because it is absurd, or you can lean in and really being like, oh my gosh, she is fucking up like this women's liberation moment right here, or she is like really interrogating this middle America life, where she's really interrogating, I mean, the soup art. I was like there are thousands, millions of New York comedian theater people who fucking wish they could be on this level making art that, I mean, and she's doing physical like comedy, she's doing character work, voices, she's in drag. It's a stunning display of all of her talent, which is why I'm just like so confused as to like what happened after. And not that like her work wasn't good after, but like none of the work afterwards, I think, is utilizing all these talents and skills.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, she became this caricature of herself. And was playing a lot of secretaries. There were good secretaries. She was good at doing it. But I mean, she's playing like a 15-year-old and like grandparents and like hoity-toity business ladies and sex workers and doing like, I was astounded by it. It's really good. And so please go to YouTube and fucking search for it. And it's a great watch.
Yeah, because I think it's sort of hard to find because it was done for HBO and whatnot. It's sort of harder to find now. I initially set off, and I think it's because like I love Altman and everything, and I think my brain was always like, it's got to be Nashville because I fucking love Nashville so much, and she's so brilliant. But it is just one role in a very large tapestry. And so I think you're right. And so I also think my 5-star review is The Search for Signs for Intelligent Life in the Universe, because it is sort of everything. And like you said, it, she's really grasping at a lot of ideas and processing them. And what feels like real time, but you also have to understand that this is all written. It's been done. It's been workshopped. She like really studies these characters and really is making a meal of it and doing all these really fantastical things. And like you said, and I also think it's interesting how, these are ideas that she's been dealing with her entire career. The thing that you mentioned about the woman being like, but lived by us, is also part of that Juke and Opal sketch, because a huge part of that sketch is these two young white people come in to like interview Richard Pryor to ask him about like what it's like living on the streets. Richard Pryor's making fun of the questions they're asking him. One of the guys is like, hey, listen, we don't make up these questions. And Lily Tomlin responds with, sorry, we make up these answers.
And the meta narrative is of like, she is making art out of people she has seen.
Right.
Like, even though I think she has, ingested all this around her, she has not been a sex worker. She has
Right.
not been a bag lady.
Right.
And
she's never run a diner, like, know?
Right. But she is. And so there's like this meta commentary where she's like, is it like we're creating entertainment out of people's lived experiences, and like what is the difference between like that and how do we turn that into entertainment, and why is one more valuable than the other? And like it's just so sharp.
You ask me if evolution was worth its salt. It should have evolved something better than survival of the fittest. Yeah, I think a better idea would be survival of the wittiest. At least that way creatures that didn't survive could have died laughing.
Miracle exists. I have not seen anything like this since. The closest maybe is like Whoopi's one woman
I thought
show.
a lot about that. And I think the difference is like, Lily Tomlin does consider herself a stand-up, though she has said like, I was not a traditional stand-up. Like the thing is that I was standing up in front of people. But when we did our Whoopi episode, which was forever ago at this point, I just kept thinking about how Whoopi didn't consider herself a stand-up.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, because like Lily is like asking questions in the same way that Whoopi is, but I think Lily is less like, isn't life crazy, and more like just kind of trying to poke holes into reality. Like it really is just kind of like whereas Whoopi is like going for the laughs. Whoopi is going for the entertainment of it all. This feels really heady, but not in a snobby way. It's just astounding. I it won the Drama Desk Award for unique theatrical experience. Well, yes, unique it is.
I can't imagine seeing it on stage with just her doing it, like no costumes, just like.
And I think that's what's really cool. I think the filmic version of this is really interesting. I think it does add to the experience. You're in this, like, it feels like you're in a black box, private like performance, and the visuals are really cool. The edits are really cool.
I love the editing in it.
Yeah, so I do think, like, I don't feel like we're copping out by picking a theater thing, because this filmed experience is very like specific for cinema.
It's a cinematic. It's definitely a cinematic presentation of. Yeah, absolutely.
Gavin, anything else we want to shout out that like we love?
I mean, 9 to 5. How could you not talk about 9 to 5?
Please, 9 to 5 is great. I do think Grandma is worth watching just because it's like all of the best parts of, like, she's being fierce, but she has like this kind of gooey center. Like, it's not, she escapes a little bit of the caricature in Grandma. I really like Grandma.
Well, I think if you're going to shout out Grandma, then I've got to shout out Late Night, because I do really think Late Night is worth watching and should be seen by more people, because it does feel like it's kind of a lost movie from that era.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And Prairie Home Companion will always have a little piece of my heart.
We do love Prairie Home Companion here. We do.
Yeah. Before we get into our fast forward, why don't we do a little bit of our mixed review?
My 1-star review was 1978's Moment by Moment.
And my 1-star review was 1998's Krippendorf's Tribe.
That sentence.
It's gross.
Crazy. My 5-star review is 1991's The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe. Yes.
And that was also my 5-star review.
Yay. Let's get into our fast forward.
There's not a ton listed in terms of what she's doing next. And once again, she's 85. So
I feel like my favorite thing about her right now is she will go on to the YouTubes and do her little career look backs. Because I will say, I don't like when the young girls are doing their like Vanity Fair. I'm like, Diva, unless you are literally Nicole Kidman, who has had a movie out 2 movies out for every year. But like, I don't need to see like Selena Gomez talking about her career. Like I do want to see Lily Tomlin. Yes, like that. And she's so funny. It's also really just like eye-opening to hear her talk about her career and like what it was like. I love that she does, the Q&As. She'll like go to the screenings of things.
And she's like game for stuff, because it's, as much as, once again, 80 for Brady is not it. It was really funny to watch like her and Rita Moreno and Jane Fonda and Sally Field try and figure out Trixie Mattel, and then like and do all that stuff.
I think she's very much right now in like legacy preservation mode. It kind of feels like, right? Which great, good. Like people need to. What you were saying of like late night. Is it called late night? Yeah, it's called late night, right?
Yeah.
Like there are things that movie going audiences need to know about Lily's career and need to see. I think specifically there are queer people that need to know and need to see. Like not everything is great, but like, yes, you fucking should see Big Business. And maybe it's even just because of the gay side plot, like I think, and I will not stop talking about like from the beginning to the very end of seeing Moving On. I'm like, wow, she is in these movies unapologetically talking, either being a queer person, talking about queer people, in a such like, it's not even a big deal way. It's just kind of like, it just is. In the same way that like Jane Fonda, like in Moving On, she's like, yeah, she has a black ex-husband, and that's just what it, of course.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of, both of them have really stood on their business when it comes to liberation and justice and like equality. So yeah, I think like it's people should be. I mean, oh my God, Gavin, what would it mean if we didn't have to fucking watch Search for Signs in 8 parts on YouTube? Like,
I know exactly.
Can we get someone to do that for us?
And the only thing I would add to that is I think the best quality for, besides that she's like sticking to her guns and putting it, is she's always reaching for it too. Like she's always trying to push it a little further by, she's not really complacent. That's why the stuff like 80 for Brady kind of hits wrong, because that does feel like the complacency stuff, or like some of the stuff in the 90s, because it does feel like, I mean, she's a human person. She needs to get paid and stuff too. She deserves a recognition. But I think, the stuff like Search for Signs, the stuff like even The Incredible Shrinking Woman, even though I didn't like it, like she's reaching for something and she's trying to like,
it's pushing
get to a deeper
the
truth.
Word, like it's pushing the medium. I do wonder, and I do think the 90s were not great for women.
Yes.
The 90s were not, I mean,
even though we would love to pretend they were.
They no, of course, like, and she was, becoming older. She was already playing old women when she was so young. I imagine, and again, I talked about this at the very beginning, she must have just been going through had a lot of barriers for entry into all these things. And so, the things that were available to her were, secretaries. Also, we didn't mention, she went from theater to TV to film and back way before any of that conversation was going on. So, yes, in the 90s when it was running dry, she said, I'm going to get the checks I can get. Because I'm sure that these movies that are like 80 for Brady, Moving On, like these are all things that she's making with people that she's worked with before.
Right.
Like there's no more Robert Altman around to like call her up to do the thing. And I don't think that studios are probably like, yeah, let's get the old lesbo on. Like
exactly. Yeah. I don't begrudge her reaching for the check in the 90s, because once again, I also, as I was saying earlier, I think she was, being hailed as a genius. She was being, told she was an icon and whatnot. And she's like, well, pay me then. Pay me like the, and we've talked about it many times before on this show that women don't get a lot of the opportunities that men do. And so, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if I need her to do anything else now.
No.
And I think that's fine. You know,
like literally, what if like the Lily Tomlin story hour, and she booked a theater every night. She just like, told stories about, people. I think that would be hilarious. I think she would be game also.
We've been talking about it ever since our Jane Fonda episode, which was 5-6 years ago at this point. They're still talking about a 9 to 5 sequel. I don't need it at this point. Not from them. Not with them. And that's fine.
That's fine. I think her icon status very securely, she's got it on lock. People will be talking. I mean, that's the thing. Like, people will be talking about her and her art for generations to come. And yeah, what a great subject for our Pride episode this year.
Absolutely.
Thank you everyone for voting.
Thank you so much. And if you want to contact us about anything else, it can be Pride, it can be Lily Tomlin, it could be any of our past subjects. It could just to tell Louis how nice his glasses look, because they look very nice right now.
Thank you.
You can find us on Blue Sky at The Mixed Reviews.
Find us on Facebook. Just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to email us, you can email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're also over on Instagram at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to our previous episodes like you've just listened to this one, you can listen to us on any major podcast app. We're on Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, like I said, all the major ones. If you want to go there, you can leave us a 5-star rating and write us a little review. We'll read it on the show if you do. Or if you don't want us to, we don't have to. We're accommodating.
We also want to mention we're part of the Glitter Jaw Network. Queer podcasting for your queer ears, honey.
Absolutely. Perfect for Pride Month. And you can find us on Patreon. Membership to Patreon for us is just $5 across the board. We have 2 different tiers, but they're both $5, and you get the same content for both.
Yay. Happy Pride, everyone. We will see you next time. We're doing a mini genre next time.
Yeah, fun in the sun.
We haven't done one of those in a while. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All the world, it is so sad and dreary.